President of Sri Lanka Cricket furious after scandal was revealed.
ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ඕන විදියට නෙමෙයි අපි වැඩ කරන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන් ඔයාට ඕන විදියට නෙමෙයි.
Government says MCC will not be signed in any way. 5 years since the bond scam. Minister Kehelia hints the possible dates Arjuna Mahendran will be brought to justice.
අපිට ලොකු විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා ඉදිරි දින කිහිපය තුළ අපිට ඒක අරතුත කරන්න පුළුවන්.
Sajin was remanded for intimidating witnesses. President instructs to immediately suspend oil palm cultivation in the country.
Good evening. Welcome to Primetime News on TV1. In your top story tonight, Sri Lanka Cricket today apologized over the assault of cricket fans outside the Suryavavi International Cricket Stadium during the second ODI between Sri Lanka and West Indies yesterday.
අපේ ප්‍රේක්ෂකයෝ අපිට උඟක් වටිනවා.
Our spectators are valuable to us. We didn't predict that around 9,000 people will arrive at the same time. We had sold 3,000 tickets by last morning. There were around 2,500 tickets which had been printed. We wish to express our regret over the incident. It will not happen in the future. We apologize to the spectators.
ඇත්තටම අපි සමාව ඉදිනවා අපේ ප්‍රේක්ෂකයන්ගෙන්.
These were the views expressed by the SLC president when Newsfirst repeatedly raised questions over the incident.
ආධාරණය කරනවා මේ අපි මේකට ඉන්ටර්නල්.
We will serve justice. We have commenced an internal investigation into this. I am aware your channel allocates airtime to criticize the SLC. That is why we apologize if a mistake had happened. We bear the entire blame for this. If incidences of this nature happen in the future, we will bear the entire responsibility for that as well. We will not shirk our responsibilities. We will work according to a set of principles and not based on how you want us to work. Unlike other channels, it is only your channel that criticizes everything the SLC does.
වෙන කවුරුත් නැහැ මෙතන එහෙම කියන්නේ කිසිම channel එකක්. ඔයා වෙනම line එකකින් යන්නේ ඒක.
The apology rendered by the SLC president should be appreciated. However, you cannot stop Newsfirst from exposing the corrupt activities of individuals like you and politicians who benefit from the money of the people. We will expose them constantly as it is the responsibility that has been vested upon us by the people of this country. There is an important matter that we wish to remind the SLC president. You might have forgotten the efforts undertaken by our institution to raise the standards of cricket to the global level at a time when this sport was not popular in our country. President of Sri Lanka Cricket, we wish to remind you that we will continue to expose the manner in which the income that should be enjoyed by the entire nation is being used for the benefit of certain individuals. Will you provide the same answer regarding the matter pertaining to the broadcasting rights and the $187,084 and 75 US cents that the country should receive, and the response of the current broadcasting rights holder? What is the explanation that you have when Sony claimed that the conduct of Sri Lanka Cricket is not transparent with regard to the above mentioned financial transaction? Who will bear the responsibility for the losses incurred by Sri Lanka Cricket as a result of the mechanism to recruit coaches and the case filed by a national coach seeking compensation? Who will bear the responsibility of the losses amounting to $339,025 US which had been concealed when it was questioned at Parliament? Who will bear the responsibility for the losses and financial irregularities which were exposed to the forensic audit carried out into awarding local broadcasting rights? Who will bear the responsibility for the transactions involving foreign accounts which had taken place in violation of foreign exchange laws after setting up an institution named Cricket Aid? Who will bear the responsibility for the financial losses incurred as a result of transforming a proposed cricket university into a training institution? What is your response to our revelation on how the fixtures of the limited overs cricket tournament had been changed in an ad hoc manner? Can SLC be raised from its current standards by threatening the media and assaulting cricket spectators instead of responding to these damning allegations? We believe that the SLC president can learn a few lessons from the remarks made by the Prime Minister today.
We express regret over the incident where spectators were assaulted. I feel it is the mistake of the SLC which led to this incident. The manner in which young cricket fans were assaulted after being granted an opportunity to watch matches is unacceptable.
මේ විදිහට සලකපු එක නම් සම්පූර්ණ වැරදි.
And some news from the UN sessions in Geneva. The 43rd session of the United Nations Human Rights Council will continue today as well in Geneva, Switzerland.
I regret that the new government has announced a very different approach to the commitments previously made in the resolution, which risks setting back efforts to advance reconciliation, accountability and human rights. The state must work for all its people and the needs of all communities, particularly the minorities, must be acknowledged and addressed. I urge the government to preserve and build upon the gains which have been made over the last few years. Sri Lanka's independent institutions, strengthened under the 19th Constitutional Amendment, are a key pillar in its democratic structure. The increasing levels of hate speech and security and policy measures appear to be discriminatory and disproportionately directed against minority, both Tamil and Muslim. Domestic processes have consistently failed to deliver accountability in the past, and I am not convinced the appointment of yet another commission of inquiry will advance this agenda. As a result, victims remain denied justice, and Sri Lankans from all communities have no guarantee that past patterns of human rights violation will not recur. I urge the Council to remain alert to this situation in terms of prevention and to explore all possible avenues for advancing accountability.
The UNHRC report submitted by the UN High Commissioner of Human Rights, titled Promoting Reconciliation, Accountability and Human Rights in Sri Lanka, includes the following points. The High Commissioner in her report has unequivocally condemned the crimes committed on the 21st of April and the ideology behind them, and expresses her solidarity with the people of Sri Lanka, particularly the victims and their families. With regard to the Office on Missing Persons and the Office for Reparations, the High Commissioner in her report says, despite the delays in implementation highlighted in previous reports, both institutions have achieved a considerable degree of development and have undertaken important initiatives. The report adds, in 2019, the Office on Missing Persons opened regional offices in Batticaloa, Jaffna, Mana and Matara, and it recruited and trained permanent staff, including the victims and family support officers, who will be the first point of contact for family members. Importantly, the rollout began in 2019 of a scheme for immediate relief for vulnerable families of missing persons who have obtained certificates of absence, with a budget allocation of 500 million Sri Lankan rupees. This initiative has great significance for victims and their families, and the timely disbursement of payments should be ensured. The report further says the government has indicated that it may take a different approach to the issue of missing persons who may have been the victims of enforced disappearing during and after the conflict. This has created considerable distress and anxiety among victims of their families. In a statement on the 24th of January 2020, the President's office clarified that after the necessary investigations, steps would be taken to issue a death certificate and the necessary support for the families to rebuild their lives. The UN High Commissioner notes that there has been no further progress towards the development of a more comprehensive Truth and Reconciliation Commission. While noting the current efforts of the Attorney General to handle pending cases more efficiently, the absence of progress on these cases highlights the systemic impediments to accountability in the criminal justice system. The report further says, on the 9th of January 2020, the government appointed a new presidential commission to investigate alleged political victimization of public officials by the previous government. On the 22nd of January 2020, the Commission issued directives to the Attorney General to suspend the prosecution of naval officers over the abduction for ransom of 11 youths in Colombo in 2008 and 2009. At the time of writing the report, the High Commissioner for Human Rights says the Attorney General had not complied with this order, asserting the independence of his office. Several officers responsible for the investigation of other high-profile cases have been transferred or deprived of their security details. On the 20th of January 2020, a German court convicted a former member of the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam for the assassination in 2005 of former Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Lakshman Kadiragama and sentenced him to 6 years and 10 months in prison. The case highlights the importance of accountability for crimes committed by all parties, including in foreign jurisdictions. The High Commissioner says that she regrets that the government declined to include the national anthem in the Tamil language during the official Independence Day celebrations on the 4th of February 2020, despite the preceding year's practice of singing it in two languages as a significant gesture towards reconciliation.
Minister Dinesh Gunawardena responded.
Notwithstanding withdrawing from the co-sponsorship of the resolution, we emphasize that our commitment to achieving the goals set by the people of Sri Lanka on accountability, human rights, towards sustainable peace and reconciliation through the appointment of a domestic commission of inquiry, by implementing policies rooted in the government's commitment to operationalize the Sustainable Development Goals, by continuing to work with the assistance of the UN and its agencies. To those who have expressed disappointment on Sri Lanka's decision to withdraw from the co-sponsorship of the Resolution 30/1, despite the government's reassurance to this Council of our commitment to achieving the goals within the framework of our Constitution to ensure accountability and human rights towards sustainable peace and reconciliation, it is clear that they are privileging a superficial facade which has failed to deliver for 4.5 years over the genuine possibility of reconciliation. Underpinned by people's mandate, Sri Lanka has consistently refuted the credibility of the false and unsubstantiated allegations leveled against Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, the present commander of the Sri Lanka Army. Sri Lanka considers that the continued arbitrary accusations made against Lieutenant General Silva in the OHCHR reports and other statements made in this council and unilateral actions by certain countries are unacceptable and a violation of the principles of natural justice. We also state that there are no proven allegations against individuals on war crimes or crimes against humanity in the OISL report or in any subsequent official document. It is an injustice to deprive any serving or retired officer of the Sri Lankan security forces or the police of their due rights. A commission of inquiry headed by a justice of the Supreme Court will be appointed to review the reports of the previous Sri Lanka commissions of inquiries which investigated alleged violations of human rights and international humanitarian law, to assess the status of implementation of their recommendations and to propose deliverable measures to implement them in keeping in line with the new government's policy. The national law enforcement system will continue to investigate and prosecute cases on allegations of torture and other human rights violations that are currently before the judicial process. Within the above parameters, we look forward to continuing our engagement with the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, UN human rights mechanisms and procedures, and continue to work in close cooperation with the international community through the capacity building and technical assistance in mutually agreed areas in keeping with the domestic priorities and policies.
Meanwhile, the United Kingdom and Canada have expressed their disappointment with Sri Lanka's decision to withdraw its co-sponsorship from the UN resolution. UK Minister of State at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, Lord Tariq Ahmed, expressed deep disappointment that Sri Lanka has withdrawn support for the resolution. He urged Sri Lanka to protect human rights and focus on reconciliation, justice and accountability. Canadian Foreign Minister François Philippe said that Canada is disappointed by Sri Lanka's decision to change its approach to the UN Human Rights Council resolution on accountability and reconciliation. Canada called on Sri Lanka to take further action on these priorities and stands ready to support a prosperous and inclusive Sri Lanka.
You would have seen that even when the sessions were on, the first year, second year, there was all Tamil diaspora actively participating in it, actively making very derogative comments on it, and they also were able to secure slots to express their comments or whatever the reasons that they used to give. They blow it completely out of proportion, and they were given space in that. That is because of the co-sponsorship of this. Lately, you would have found when it came to the third year, fourth year, there was resistance from all over the country, from various other quarters as well. But you cannot put on a blanket cover and say 54 one of the army generals and hierarchies have been barred from traveling. Now, is there any justice?
When there are so many changes taking place in the political arena, when governments come and go, when political leaders change in the political arena, one thing that has not changed thus far is corruption. Here we are, still talking about the corrupt activities that took place in the country. Exactly 5 years ago, the massive financial fraud ever to take place in the history of Sri Lanka, the central bank bond scam took place. Exactly, Chaturanga, 1,825 days ago, the central bank bond scam took place.
Absolutely, Azra. There are thieves in the ruling party, there are thieves in the opposition. When one group of thieves goes out of power, another group of thieves come into power. Then the thieves are trying to arrest another group of thieves. This seems to be the tradition, this seems to be the culture, this seems to be everything that we know as politics in our country.
Now, Chaturanga, they say that the former governor of the central bank or the former governor should be held responsible. Who exactly should be held responsible in this?
Absolutely, Azra. What you say is absolutely correct. There are corrupt officials as well as there are corrupt politicians in the country. We have elected these politicians into power. The day to make the decision once again will come very soon, and on that day, remember to make the correct decision.
On the 27th of February 2015, exactly 5 years ago, deviation from due process and manipulation resulted in the largest financial scam to take place in Sri Lankan history, which is known as the bond scam. The parties embroiled in the scam are fugitive ex-Central Bank Governor Arjuna Mahendran, Perpetual Treasuries Limited, beneficial owner of PTL Arjun Aloysius, CEO of PTL Kasun Palisena. Many others, including ex-Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, ex-ministers in the UNP-led government of good governance, as well as MPs, were alleged to have been involved in the events surrounding the scam and to have obtained payoffs from the main perpetrators. 5 years ago today, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka advertised for 1 billion rupees. However, ex-Governor Mahendran decided to accept 10 billion rupees, toning down from his previous decision to accept all the bids, which amount to just north of 20 billion rupees. Perpetual Treasuries ended up with the lion's share of the 10 billion rupees, and part of it was achieved at an extraordinarily high rate. For 2 years, the decision was defended by several quarters with the appointment of committees, and it was criticized by others, especially by the parliamentary watchdog COPE. While all this was taking place in March 2016, the second bond scam took place, and it is yet to be investigated. The 2016 COPE investigation led by Sunil Handunetti found former Governor Arjuna Mahendran directly responsible for the controversial bond transaction. As nothing transpired, former President Maithripala Sirisena appointed a Presidential Commission of Inquiry in 2017, which found Arjuna Mahendran, Arjun Aloysius, Kasun Palisena, Perpetual Treasuries Limited, and relevant officers of CBSL and the EPF are parties to and directly responsible for the offence. Aloysius and Palisena were arrested, remanded, and later granted bail, while Mahendran remains in hiding despite measures for extradition in play. According to experts, the people of Sri Lanka will have to pay for the sins of the perpetrators for another 30 years, as the losses would increase to an amount beyond imagine, despite the immediate loss being north of 600 million rupees. Experts also say the loss of the second bond scam of 2016 will be even more greater and disastrous for the Sri Lankan people to cope with.
We have handed over this matter to the Attorney General. Therefore, the AG must take legal action against this matter. I believe he will do so. We are looking into this. We will not let go of this issue. Prior to elections, you claimed you will bring back Arjuna Mahendran to Sri Lanka. But to date, this has not happened. However, KP, who was in a neighbouring country, was brought back to Sri Lanka. Arjuna Mahendran also resides in a neighbouring country. Is he not brought back because of his ties with politicians? No, in our case, it's been 100 days. Our intelligence units have weakened, but then our intelligence units were very strong. Have faith in us. Action will be taken in the near future. A mechanism to expedite the process to look into this matter has been implemented. I am confident that within the next few weeks, we can act in this regard.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා මට ලිඛිතව දැනුම් දීලා තියෙනවා.
The President has informed me in writing that the complete responsibility of the legal process is with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So the Finance Minister and the President, as the head of the state, can issue an order to the Central Bank to take appropriate legal action. The people of this country demand the perpetrators of the bond scam be punished. Even after 5 years, all successive governments have failed to bring those responsible for the bond scam before the law. Is this the example that they set for everyone else? At present, an average man who plucked coconuts illegally is arrested, but those who planned the central bank bond scam are free. If they do not want to dig up the history of those responsible for the bond scam and their political connections prior to the election, we must at least initiate legal proceedings against them.
කරන ක්‍රියාවලියේ කටයුතු ආරම්භ කළා මේ හොරුන්ට දඬුවම් දීමේ ආරම්භ කරන්න ඕන.
And so this is a financial crime.
Indeed.
A financial crime. They have every right to, take his assets. Of course, if it is a Sri Lankan, his civic rights should have been taken out. But in this case, you can't do that. He is a foreigner. That is why he was chosen. He was chosen to perpetrate this huge scam.
But who chose him?
Obviously, the man who appointed him. He was nominated and recommended by the Prime Minister himself,
Ranil Wickremesinghe,
to his own ministry.
As we spoke earlier, the thieves in both camps are responsible for the massive scams that are happening in our country, be it the central bank bond scam, be it the Airbus refleet deal. These corrupt politicians, these corrupt officials are responsible.
Yes, Chaturangana, with all what's been revealed about these corrupt activities, people are now starting to get to know who these real perpetrators are. But who exactly are these thieves?
When they are purchasing or when they are reaching this contract, there is a scam that happens. When the cancellation takes place, there is another scam that happens. Public money is wasted. Now, Mahindananda Alutgamage had this to say regarding this.
Bribes and commission were taken when purchasing aircraft and when cancelling the agreements to purchase such aircraft. Our stance was that both parties must be punished. The CEO of Sri Lanka during our government had taken a bribe. However, the former government had to pay a penalty fee of $115 million due to cancelling an agreement to purchase aircraft. The decision to cancel the agreement was following a text message sent by then advisor to Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, Charitha Ratwatta. However, Airbus has not received the entire $115 million. They have only received $85 million. It was an advisor to the former finance minister who had negotiated this matter. Now investigations are being conducted to identify the intermediary who benefited from this transaction. Airbus had informed that it was illegal to terminate the agreement. They said if the government terminated the agreement, they would have to pay a penalty fee. The Sri Lankan government had then said, we will pay any amount you demand, and the difference was obtained as a commission. The UNP-led government during their tenure introduced new ways of looting public funds. Where in history do we come across obtaining bribes by terminating agreements? The projected loss due to the central bank bond scam is approximately 1 trillion rupees. They claim the loss was 11 billion rupees. These two figures are not comparative. The people in this country are not foolish. The people are aware of the central bank bond scam. The entire election campaign of Ranil Wickremesinghe was funded by these funds. That's not all. The house of the former finance minister was also purchased with these funds. Members of COPE committee were also paid with these funds. So the entire country knows about this. The organizers of the UNP were paid 5 million each with these funds. I should provide a statement first. I have voice recordings in which Ranil Wickremesinghe instructs Ranjan Ramanayaka to murder me. We sent these recordings to the government analyst and received the report yesterday. According to the government analyst report, prior to the bond scam, Ranil was summoned to the CID.
Though Mahindananda Alutgamage had this to say,
The former minister, Patili Champakaranamika, said this.
Many assume that it is a corrupt deal carried out by Kapila Chandrasena and his wife. A forensic audit needs to be carried out into this transaction. The Airbus transaction is the highest investment that has been done by the Sri Lankan government in the country's history. It is a 2.3 billion US dollar investment, which was worth 300 billion rupees at that time. 800,000 US dollars had been received by a businessman identified as Nimal Pereira. It is reported that he had purchased a plot of land belonging to a company known as Gabas Corporate Services, which was owned by parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa. This institution is facing allegations of corruption concerning transactions involving Shangri-La and Krish Transworks Colombo and is facing legal action. At the same time, 160,000 euros had been received by the two Rupasinghe brothers. That money too had been channeled towards certain projects at the Rajapaksas. Investigations have shown that more than 25 million rupees had been channeled in this manner. Therefore, this is not a problem of Kapila Chandrasen and his wife. It is an issue which also involves the Rajapaksa family. Whether President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is in charge of the Defence Ministry, and the Police and State Minister of Defence Chamal Rajapaksa will implement the law against their family remains a question. Therefore, we cannot have faith that the CID or the CCD will act upon this matter. The time has come for those who stand for justice and equality to voice their opposition collectively in this regard.
යුක්තිය සාධාරණය අගයන සියලු දෙනාම මේකට එරෙහිව රැහැණිව කතා කළ යුතු අවස්ථාවේ ලැබිලා තියෙනවා.
Now, while matters concerning the central bank bond scam and the Airbus deal are being widely discussed, the MCC agreement has not died down as a topic of discussion. The MCC agreement featured as a main topic in political stages of the current government during the run-up to the previous presidential election. Will they deliver on their promises to prosecute these people?
මොකද්ද? ඇවිල්ලා කරා. නෑ සකරන්න.
The SLFP does not support the signing of the agreement unless the funds are obtained without damaging the country's independence, identity and respect.
සංකල්ලා එයට අනුමැතිය දෙන්න අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ විදිහට අපේ කැමැත්තක් නෑ. ඒක යලි සලකා බලන්න ඔව් ඒක හොඳයි ඒක.
That is good. If such a grant is being opposed, then we should think about it. It is good that the committee was appointed. We should move forward by taking their recommendations into consideration. We clearly stated that there are questionable clauses in the pact. If the US tries to infringe our territorial sovereignty and exert influence over land management and to set up land banks while giving us the grant, then that is the problem. That is why we said we have to hold discussions in this regard before obtaining the grant.
කමිටුව ආරා ගේන යෝජනාවලිය සලකා බලලා අවශ්‍ය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගත යුතුයි කියලා විශ්වාස කරනවා.
There are several countries which are classified as poor nations. Grants such as the MCC are not granted to those countries. Grants have been given to countries which assist their geopolitical activities. We have become a colony when this agreement for the 480 million US dollar grant is signed. Multinational companies are given a chance to utilize the land according to how they want. While the working class will become their slaves to this agreement, representatives of a company named USAID are in the director board of Millennium Challenge Corporation. USAID is attempting to upturn Sri Lanka's labour laws and to establish a new law, thereby making workers insecure. Why is USAID spending their money and trying to amend Sri Lanka's labour laws? This is because the multinational companies can occupy these lands and obtain cheap labour. In addition, MCC will be able to handle the maintenance of the existing expressways while developing the transport system. The road system of this country will be privatized through this agreement. Therefore, if someone is assuming that the MCC agreement can be revised and that only favourable parts would be included, then that is a myth.
පොඩ්ඩක් වෙනස් කරලා කරන්න පුළුවන් හොඳ දේවල් ඇතුළත් කරලා කරන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක් කියලා කෙනෙක් හිතනවා නම් ඒක උමතුවක් විතරයි. මේක තමයි ඇත්ත. ඒක නිසා අපි පැහැදිලිව
We request that the interim report on the MCC agreement, which is handed over to the President, should be made public before the general election. Why can't the politicians who claim that the US will occupy Sri Lanka table this report before the people?
ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න බැරි කියන එක පිළිබඳව අපි අහනවා.
What has happened to the agriculture sector of Sri Lanka? State Minister of Agriculture Vidura Wickramanayake expressed these views during an event in Horana today.
I am very openly saying that Secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture is also the same. They all just wanted to be influenced by Sabita. They made several arguments when I said the place belonged to us. Do you know what the monthly rent was? It was 24.3 million rupees. You can allocate this money to the farmers. What a waste. I received a written note about the possible impact on the pest issue on cultivation. I forwarded it to the Director General of the department asking for a suitable remedy. I sent the letter in January. I received a response in mid-February. It was too late. This is what has happened to this sector. Farmers start that there is no fertilizer, but the Secretariat says that there is enough and more fertilizer in the country. I told them to show me where they are being stored. They are trying to fool us. Do you think it is possible to move forward in this manner? If this turns out to be successful, they will not be able to earn their commission. An election is to be held. I'm not making a political statement. I'm not sure whether I will be chosen by the people or not. If I win the election and obtain a seat in Parliament, Vidura Wickramanayake will make these officials kneel before the people.
An unidentified disease is spreading across more than 500 acres of paddy in Alahara, Polonnaruwa.
The disease has spread across paddy fields located in several villages, including Alahara, Gangayaya, Kunduruvava and Kottapitia. The paddy have turned yellow and dry. Newsfirst inquired about this from the resident manager of the Mahaweli Authority, Hemantha Jayasinghe. He said measures have been taken to control the disease. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa commenced attending District Development Coordination Committee meetings to identify public grievances. The first DCC meeting that was attended by the President was held in Galle today.
On his way to attend a meeting at the Rajagiri Cave Temple in Udugama, Galle, the President inquired about the problems of the people. Here, the public pleaded with the President to stop the cultivation of palm. In the meeting that followed, the President advised officials to take immediate steps to stop the cultivation of palm. The lack of English teachers in the Galle district was pointed out in this meeting. The President further advised that these vacancies be filled immediately and to take steps to allow math and science to be taught systematically. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa told officials in relation to water projects, if contractors are not working properly, they should be removed from service immediately. The need for a water bowser for the Udugama hospital, the appointment of principals to schools lacking such heads, the financing of small-scale water supply projects were among the other issues solved during this district meeting.
Parliamentarian Sajin Divas Gunawardena was remanded until the 12th of March by Colombo High Court Judge Kihan Kulatunga. State Counsel Udara Karunatilaka, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General's Department, said the accused former parliamentarian had intimidated witnesses from the prosecution. The Attorney General filed the case against Gunawardena for committing offences which come under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act by amassing 362 million rupees in wealth during his 5-year tenure as a parliamentarian.
Meanwhile, in more local news, the 2 Sri Lankan crew members who were on board the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Yokohama, Japan, were evacuated last night by a charter flight organized by the Indian government to New Delhi upon a request made by the Sri Lankan government. Issuing a media release, the Ministry of Foreign Relations said the 2 Sri Lankan crew members are in good health. A total of 124 crew who were on board the cruise ship have been evacuated and will undergo a quarantine period in the army facility in Haryana, India. Upon completion of the quarantine procedure in India, the 2 Sri Lankan crew members will return to Colombo. Saudi Arabia has halted religious visits that include stops in Mecca and Medina due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. Saudi Arabia is stopping foreign pilgrims entering the country. However, it is not clear if the Hajj pilgrimage, which begins in July this year, will be affected. Global deaths have surpassed 2,800 with more than 82,000 confirmed cases in more than 40 countries. US health authorities said they've identified a first case of coronavirus that does not have ties to a known outbreak.
Global stock markets showed mixed reactions today as investors worry over the broadening coronavirus epidemic. Oil prices also stayed under pressure, with US benchmark West Texas Intermediate falling to its lowest level since January 2019. Let's now take a look at your daily update of the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The Colombo Stock Exchange closed on a positive note today, with the all-share price index gaining 24.25 points subsequent to a 4-day retreat. The S&P SL 20 gained 0.33% to close at 2,679.66. The daily market turnover stood at 486 million rupees. Let's now take a look at
The value of land in the Colombo district increased by 10.4% during the second half of 2019 compared to the second half of 2018. According to the central bank, the land valuations indicator reached 138.9, registering an increase of 5.1% in the second half of 2019 from the first half of 2019. Sri Lanka is expecting domestic maize output to reach 310,497 metric tons in the main Maha harvesting season that is getting underway. The amount will be up 40% from 220,425 metric tons reported last year.
The Department of Agriculture said by January, 78% of the targeted 99,431 hectares of maize had been cultivated. Most of the maize is expected from the Anuradhapura, Monragala and Ampara districts. Sri Lanka's maize is mainly used for poultry feed, and imports are restricted with import duties and licenses.
Now, officials attached to the Pathfinder Foundation engaged in an inspection tour around the Colombo port city yesterday.
The officials arrived to inspect the first phase of the Port City project, in which construction activities had been completed.
We believe that a project such as the Port City has the potential to have a transformative impact on the economy of Sri Lanka, as well as it has the ability to establish Colombo as a commercial hub. We are here with our team and with our staff to congratulate the Port City and its staff on the completion of the first phase of the project, as well as to stand with the people in solidarity during this challenging time with regards to COVID-19, and to stand in support and solidarity with the staff and the workforce at Colombo Port City.
The Pathfinder institution was involved in this project since its inception. Construction activities had been completed, and we will now set foot on drawing investments to the country. We wish to extend our gratitude towards the Sri Lankan and Chinese entities which were involved in successfully completing the project. We believe that it is our duty to support China in the face of the coronavirus outbreak.
That's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Zeenat Musafa. We thank our news interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz, for interpreting the English news. Thank you for watching Newsfirst. Good night.